Are there humans on other planets? Is human just an Earth thing, or are there humans in other places?
Do you mean humans from Earth, or do you mean someone that's human-like?
Either.
Okay. There may be humans from Earth on other planets for a variety of reasons. I don't think it's a lot, if it is. There are humanoid ETs that are very similar to us. And one of the reasons why that may be so is I think they're actually genetically related to us. You know, one of the things a lot of scientists always say when, people bring up things like alien abduction and the Greys and the creation of hybrid beings and babies and all this kind of stuff. And a lot of scientists say, well, look, aliens are going to be very, very alien. They're going to be having completely different DNA. They wouldn't be compatible with humans enough to actually have offspring, to create hybrids. They're right. But I think they've had the answer all along without realizing it. And that means that if it is true that people are reporting abductions and the creation of hybrid babies and all this kind of stuff, that would mean they're not really alien. It would mean they might be another form of human. Now, the story that Bashar has told about the Greys is very different than a lot of other stories I've ever heard anyone else talk about. But it jives with what a lot of abductees say they have gotten from the Greys in terms of any information that they may get on a lot of levels. And the story he tells is that the Greys are mutated humans from a parallel version of Earth, where they destroyed their version of Earth. They stopped being able to reproduce. They're dying out. And therefore they had to use their technology to tunnel into parallel realities where viable humans still exist, where DNA can be used to create hybrids to perpetuate their culture. So that's the reason that they're vibrationally and genetically compatible with us, is they're not really alien. They're mutated humans. Now, there may be other humanoid aliens that are also genetically connected to us, because you were talking earlier about the Anunnaki. The idea is, from that point of view, is that humans, Homo sapiens, are already hybridized.
Yeah. So,
in other words, we wouldn't necessarily be Homo sapiens if ETs hadn't genetically injected their own genetic material.
It's a story of how we came to be the way we are.
Right. So it's about that idea. And Bashar has also said something kind of startling. He's talked a little bit about things like Sasquatch, Bigfoot.
Yeah.
He's basically saying the branches of the early hominid that evolved naturally on the earth that did not get genetically altered became the Sasquatch.
That's crazy.
So that if we had not been genetically altered, the natural being on Earth today would all be Sasquatch. There would be no Homo sapiens. So he's basically saying Homo sapiens, in a sense, is an alien form to the Earth because it's got ET genetics in it.
Right. So, okay, let's go on the story of how we came to be. And I've heard lots of stories, one in particular being the Anunnaki came to mine gold, but for their planet. But when were we first...
This is hundreds of thousands of years ago.
Right. When were we first sort of touched by extraterrestrials? What were we? And then what was the interaction? What did they want us for? Why were they here?
Well, like you said, I think the story goes that they were looking for elements to control something that was going wrong on their own homeworld. They needed to balance it with certain elements like gold. But I think they, according to the story, found the task a little daunting. And they were under a time pressure crunch to do that. And so they felt they needed help. And with their advanced genetic understanding, they felt the easiest and quickest thing to do would be to create workers that would help them mine the gold. And that's where we come in, supposedly, according to the story, is they started injecting their own genetic material into the early hominids like Homo erectus and so on and so forth, created Homo sapiens, which they could use to mine the gold. Now, as I understand it, this is something that was against their laws to do. And therefore, the original Anunnaki were recalled. The Anunnaki that were more in control of what was going on and knew that that was not something that group should have done by creating us, then had to come and oversee us and guide us to make sure we would evolve in a positive direction.
It's like you gave birth to something, now you have to make sure it doesn't die.
Exactly. And we have to make sure it has the opportunity to evolve in its natural way. And that's, I think, where you start getting the stories in ancient texts and so on and so forth of the gods coming down and giving us knowledge and guiding us and things like that. I think that's where a lot of those stories come from, is after the creation of Homo sapiens, a different set of ETs were now responsible for saying, okay, you guys did this, we have to take over and we have to guide them. And I think that's where you get a lot of those stories of people interacting with the gods, where they're being given information to help us move forward in life. A lot of misinterpretation in there still over time, because again, it's like, a cosmic version of telephone. You say one thing and somebody else misinterprets it and tells it to the next person. But I think there's seeds of truth in a lot of our ancient texts about a lot of things, stories in the Bible and so on and so forth, or in ancient Indian texts about what was going on back then. So it's a big story. It takes a lot to sort of siphon through it and figure out what elements might be true and what elements might be just sort of imagined on top of it. But I think in general, there's some truth to that story, at least as Bashar has explained it.
Has Bashar ever talked about the Ark of the Covenant, and what that is?
He has very briefly when asked about it.